welcome everybody to the Data Visualization Zurich meetup. Today we have the pleasure to be joined by two participants of the 30-day chart challenge, which happened sort of like earlier this year, which was sort of like a loose collection of people joining sort of like or taking on this challenge of producing a data visualization once per day, and sort of like try to sort of like complete the streak of do that 30 days in a row. We have Alexandra Pagaini, who will start with her presentation and her experience, and then following that will be Teresa Jovcu. Alexandra is joining us from Basel today in Switzerland, and Teresa from Hamburg, Germany. I will pretty much get out of the way here in a second, but for the ones who join us for the first time, Data Visualization Zurich is a open nonprofit organization of data visualization enthusiasts. Originally started in Zurich. We have since sort of like moved virtual due to the pandemic. It is organized by 3 people, all of which sort of like work at data visualization oriented design agencies in Zurich. That's Gabriel Lang from Frontworks, that's Cristina Poyata from C Creative Labs, and that's myself, Benjamin Wiederkehr from Interactive Things. Today's session is going to be recorded and then published on YouTube. So be aware that if you have questions or ask questions, those might be shared publicly. Reach out to me if that is an issue, and we can sort of like edit those out. We will use the Q&A feature to give you an opportunity to ask questions to the speakers, but we will go through the 2 presentations at once. So Alexandra will start, and then Teresa will follow up, and then we will have sort of like a shared Q&A session at the end. At the bottom, in the bottom toolbar of Zoom, you see the Q&A button. You can click that, you can write your questions down there, and this way we can have sort of like an organized list of questions that we can tackle sort of like after the presentations. Yeah, I think that's roughly it. If you have any questions, concerns, text me in the chat. And with this, I would love to hand over to Alexandra. Please, you can start sharing your screen and take it from here.
I'll do that now. So I hope everyone can see my screen. Thank you very much for this invitation. And yeah, I'm very excited to share my experience of the 30-day chart challenge. And so we'll just jump right into it just by saying a bit first of why I joined this event in the first place. I'm quite a bit new to the data visualization, and it has always been something that was interesting to me, and particularly with the Tidy Tuesday weekly event that takes place basically online on Twitter, which for those who don't know, it's kind of an event set up by R for data science, and every week they put online a data set that people can really download and are free to visualize how they want, particularly using R and the tidyverse, and also which includes ggplot. So this is really what I use, and R is really something that I began using when I started my PhD at the University of Basel. So really this was how I kind of got introduced to it, and I would also watch a bit some videos by Cédric Cheret with tutorials. So this really got me kind of very interested to see what you were actually able to do just in R with ggplot too. And so when I finally decided to take part in Tidy Tuesday, it was actually at the same time that the 30-day chart challenge kind of begun. And I thought this was going to be a really great just opportunity for me to learn and to see what others were doing, to be inspired by other people's work with data visualization, and just to meet and connect with people, and also then just to continue that, and to also continue learning, and also share code and see what other people are up to. I know, unfortunately, I wasn't able to actually complete all the 30 charts within the 30 days, But roughly when I would do begin one of these charts is that I would have a bit this kind of process, which would be in these 5 kind of steps, where I would start by setting myself some reasonable expectations, followed by choosing a data set that I thought would be suitable for the prompt that was given on a certain day. And then I would get a quick glimpse of the data, which was kind of very useful for me afterwards to set whether it's worth moving on to this next stage, which is building a good foundation for this plot, and then finally making it look nice. And so I think to illustrate this data process a bit more concretely, I will kind of give the example of the data visualization that I created, which was the prompt for number 23, which was with a time series, and it was the theme tiles. And for this day, I created this data visualization that shows how access to electricity changed in different countries between 1996 and 2016. So I will begin by the first stage, so setting reasonable expectations. So yeah, the whole data visualization thing for me was quite recent. And obviously I would always see kind of these very nice visualizations that some people would have on their GitHub page or on their website or would have posted. And then there's maybe some reality of things that might be more in my range of expertise. And so in a way to still keep myself motivated and not be too discouraged by what I created, I also set some reasonable expectations by taking into account, okay, what are my skills, and also how much time do I actually want to spend working on this data visualization. So I still wanted to stay within reasonable amount of time. And also what is really at stake of like, okay, I would be sharing this data visualization, but from what I see, everyone is very supportive and they would give always feedback. So it's not, that was going to be made fun of. So for me, this was a really like starting this and setting myself some limits and boundaries, really then set the tone for for what I would be producing afterwards. And so then what would come next is I would be choosing a data set. It was quite rare when I would already have a data set in mind when I would begin this. And so this can be quite tricky because there's so many options out there. We weren't really given any data sets to where we were told where we could get interesting data sets, but then we weren't constrained by that. And at the same time, I would always try to see what I would associate to the prompt, and this would kind of then set a theme for me for the plot, which then I will then try to find a data set that will basically suit this theme. And so for this theme on tiles and time series, a bit the first thing that I would have that I associated with this was actually kind of this little activity tracker that is on GitHub. So I started with this in mind, and this kind of brought me to this idea of actually doing chess. So this was kind of how the tile thing started with chess, and then that kind of got me thinking of the Queen's Gambit, which had come out quite recently at the end of kind of like a year ago now, and this kind of had set a trend. So what I thought would be, so for this plot, I'm actually going to be looking at see how board games trends over the pandemic, how that compared. So this was, I was going for this, and I thought that I would have a black and white theme for this plot in question. So, and then I told myself what I could find is this data that was already nice and easy to work with. So the thing that came in mind would be Google Trends, and they actually have this pretty nice tool where one can set kind of different search terms and kind of set where they want in the world to look at these trends and set a time period. So for me, I just looked at 2020 and what happened. So I used Sudoku to compare it. And what I could see is that, when kind of Queen's Gambit got released, there was also this spike kind of at the same time with chess. And I thought, this can be pretty neat to then visualize. So, and it's also pretty easy because you can then download this data set in a CSV file that then is quite readable in R. So this process was then fairly quick. However, for me, before starting to jump into something and really get and maybe reach a dead end, I really wanted to first make sure that, it made sense for me to go in that direction. So In R, this can be quite elegant to do, and it's very simple, and it doesn't take a lot of time. And this, for me, within this context of this 30-day chart challenge, this kind of mattered. So in R, I would just take my data set, which was already quite clean, so maybe have rearranged it slightly. And then I would set a bit what I wanted on the y-axis, the x-axis, I wanted to see the time, and then the fill, which would be the color intensity to what I wanted to correspond to, would be the searches. And then within ggplot, you have all kinds of geoms. You have geom bar, geom column, geom histogram, all of which kind of already set the type of plot that you want to create. And here really wanted geom tile. And in doing so, I actually got this type of plot. And just at the beginning, I saw kind of, yeah, this happening. And I tried a bit modifying the data using percentages, standardizing it or scaling it. And still I wasn't really happy with how this was going. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to go further with this idea. I'm just going to change. I don't feel nice if I then have to explain what the data is or if I modify it. So no. So then that means that I had to go back at some point to choose another data set. So this kind of got me a bit back. But then another thing that I would have associated with tile was kind of this battery symbol and charging. And so then I thought kind of electricity and skyscrapers and lights. And then, yeah, this got me more into what ended up being, what I ended up visualizing in this plot, which was looking at access to electricity in different countries. And for this, I immediately knew where I would be getting data from, which is, in case you don't know, Our World in Data. It's this really great website that covers quite a broad range of topics, and they would have some really nice pages with quite detailed explanations, and it would be accompanied with already nice data visualizations. So for me, this was very helpful because I could already see the data evolve over time. And for me, then it made sense to say, oh, I'm going to choose this data set. It seems interesting. There are variances between countries over time. And I think this might look good in a data visualization. And what is super great is that you can always download a lot of these data sets, and they're in these quite clean CSV files that you can immediately read into the software of your choice. In that case, it was R. And so then I will be back in step 3, which would be getting this quick glimpse of the data. And for this, I would take the data, and within it, I would actually just first select a few countries that I thought could be interesting. And again, I would set some geom tile to see what that looked like. And then I got this as a result. And I thought, oh, okay, I could work with this. I would see the different, how the color would look like for different countries. And we see that for some countries, there's more change over time. For others, there is less. And for some countries, they had a quite high access to energy from 1990 to 2016. So this was then a good for me to then go and then start building a good foundation for this plot. And this would then usually involve kind of 2 steps. So first step would be to prepare the data. And within this, it was quite important for me that it shouldn't be too time consuming. So is that at least I would maybe clean out some rows. I might have to rename some countries, which might have quite long names. So it involved a bit of that, but then that was important that, most of the job was already done. And then comes the second one, which would be then building the basis for this data visualization. And again, in R, what I would do is to have a bit of placeholders. So again, I would have my data, which is now clean, and that would be from Our World in Data. And then I would set what do I want on my y-axis, the x-axis, I want to see time, and I would fill in actually by axis. So that the color would correspond to the access that people had to electricity over the years. And then I would group by country, because then this would help have countries then be able to be faceted individually. I didn't want every country to be in a single row. I wanted them to each have their own little space within the plot. And then I would then set theme as void. So although there are other themes available within ggplots. That with theme void, you start with nothing and you start from scratch, which has its advantages. So then that meant that I had to add all of these placeholders, which will then have me then add more details and some edits of then saying, yes, then I want to always edit these elements in one way or another. So I would have placing those, and by placing those, then I would get this type of plot as a result. Of course, it's not final, but for me, it made me feel confident to say, yes, I can really build up from this structure, basically. And so then I would start trying to make the data visualization look nice. So that would have different steps, and in the order in which these are done, I mean, it would really depend, but I would usually start by adding some titles and text, and I always try to keep it short and informative as well. So then instead of having I would add more the title that I wanted, a bit the subtitles, and then finally potentially renaming the header for the legend. And obviously here it's not in the right format. There's the text that runs over, so it's still work in progress. And then the next step would be for me to kind of choose the type of font that I wanted. And I feel that depending on the font that I use, it makes quite a big difference. So I would spend a fair amount of time just looking through either Google Fonts or just online for a type of font that I thought would be suitable. And there would be some trial and error until I find that, oh, this is really the plot that, is bold enough and kind of also, it looks harmonious with the rest of the kind of theme that is going on. And so for this, I went like with Montserrat, which is, quite blonde. And there I would already specify a certain size for this plot. And then I would already save kind of the data visualization in the format that I will then be sharing it in. So this also would then involve a bit of trial and error for me to find the right dimensions into which to save it, such that all the information is then visible. And then what I would also do is taking care of little details. So this might involve legends, this might involve labels, but also margins. So work on spacing between different items such that not everything is stuck to the border. And in this case, I really wanted to move the legend that was, by default, kind of the right-hand side, to move it on top, and then to have more spacing between titles such that it's more kind of friendly to look at. And then the last thing that I like to then go through is a bit the color palette. And here I feel generally that the less, the better. I mean, it depends, but I like to stay within the same shades of color as possible. And then for me, a bit based on the theme that I was going for and a bit having kind of skyscrapers in mind, I was quite set on having a dark background and just one color for the font, which just ended up being just yellow and just one shade of gray. And so then by setting this within this kind of foundation that I built, and then having the plot background set to fill as dark gray, so then I ended up with this final data visualization that I ended up posting online. And obviously, when that happened, I mean, I always wanted to maybe add something else or make something different. For instance, I wanted to potentially just have another mini plot within it to explain how to read the different little facets instead of having this text there. But but I thought at some point that I had spent enough time doing it. So for me, that was, I was quite happy with the results. So so for me, it was kind of going through a bit these different steps for the different plots that I created, and I felt that it was kind of here where there might be more doubt and more back and forth until I felt that, this kind of data set really suits what I want to achieve. And then always kind of at the last stage with stage 5, trying to make the data look nice, I felt that this is where most of the Googling was involved for me to figure out, okay, how do I get this in the right spaces between different potential icons? So in case you might have already, taken part in Tidy Tuesday, or already taking part in the 30-day chart challenge, or this is like going through a process like this within a short amount of time is something that interests you, then I would just really want to quickly mention this hackathon that will be taking place next week. So I'm helping organize it. And so what we're doing is that we are looking at how different SDGs reach basic different goal set of how, academic research in Switzerland addresses the UN Sustainable Development Goals. And in there, you're invited as a group or as an individual to produce a data visualization. And you can get more information on the sdghackathon.io website or at SDG Hackathon. And here we would give you a data set and you have 24 hours to create that. All levels are welcome, and also all data visualization tools are welcome as well. And also, if you maybe don't want to create a data visualization, you might want to register, because there will be workshops and also talks, a keynote talk by Valentina De Filippo, and so it would be very interesting. So so this was kind of a bit my data visualization journey for kind of for being part of this 30-day chart challenge. And it was really an experience I really enjoyed, and I wish I could have completed more data visualizations, but thank you very much, and look forward to your questions at the end of the discussion.
Thank you so much, Alexandra. Tour de force, showing us all the steps of your design process for one of your examples. I will just hand right over to Teresa. It's going to be interesting to see how thinking about such a challenge and maybe how processes are different for different people. So Teresa, please take it from here.
So thank you. So I, on the other hand, I have not really truly reflected so much on my process, and I didn't really set to have a process in the first place. So I have a completely different, but that's really good that Alexandra's presentation talked about the process, because you'll see. Okay, so I participated also in the visualization challenge, and I going to start also with why I did it. So I worked as a data scientist for quite so many years, and it never really felt like there was enough time to really go into data visualizations or doing infographics and whatnot. It's like, and even if you do it there for internal presentations and not really for nice visualization. So I saw the challenge, and I thought, oh, this will be just like the Advents of Code challenge that I had just participated in December. And how hard can it be? 30 days. I will not spend so much time. This didn't really happen. So it was every day one new topic in different themes. And I will go in my presentations through all of them. And also it actually escalated really quickly. So my intention originally was just to practice a little bit more of data visualization, but after the first day where I did my chart in Altair in Python, on the second day I randomly remembered that I wanted to learn JavaScript as well, and I decided then to go for observable and do my visualizations in D3.js while learning both how to do nice visualizations, but also a new programming language without reading a book, because impatient learner. And I thought, how hard can it be? And observable has already so many nice examples that other people, you can fork notebooks and just go on from that. So let's go through all of the visualizations that I did, and I will kind of tell you a little bit on each of them, like what I did and how I found the data and so on. So the first one that I did was data is from IDEA, and it has data on gender quotas per region in different countries, and I aggregated them by continents. That was the chart in Altair. I also lost the source for it because I didn't save it, and then anyways. And here, like some charts that I will not mention in detail, I basically I play Dota, which is online. It's a game online, and I decided to get my data, and it has an API. So I got my data and I charted my win rate, and it turned out from this chart that I shouldn't play on Wednesdays. As you can see, Wednesday, not good. I don't know why. So that's not part of the data visualization part. And as we had for comparisons, this was, I thought I should also do a pie chart, although, you know, in data visualizations, everybody says, don't do pie charts. But I did a pizza chart, and then I thought, pizza, maybe there's data on pizza, on what countries are using pizza. So I used Google for this. I Googled, I found some article, some places were kilograms. Anyway, I eventually found some data that kind of fit to say, tell the picture. Norway eats a lot of pizza. Who would have known? So yeah, in the comparison category, so for the pictogram, I decided to look at the gender quotas in the German Bundestag. So to get this, some of the German parties advertise it, some don't. So I had to read the manifesto of the more right-wing parties. This was really unpleasant, but I managed. And apparently they don't have gender quota. And disclaimer, content warning, I even got a little bit of hate on Observable because we shouldn't, it's a crime to let women work and all that. So this had been actually reported for code of conduct violation, and it was approved, and this comment was removed. So, but yeah, so if you do data visualization online, you get exposed yourself, and talk about politics, you get exposed yourself to stuff. And how I did the chart, so basically somebody else did part of pictogram. I forked it on Observable and I edited. I added a little bit more so that I can do percentages. I extended it, but in the end, of course, I wouldn't have been on my third day of JavaScript able to do this from scratch, right? For historical data, I again went through the whole Bundestag archives, like I found a website where there was the information when all the elections in Germany happened, the years, and then for that year, I went on the archives of the Bundestag, get the version of that website, and then get the gender quotas of the people in the Bundestag. And I originally wanted to do a pyramid chart, but the whole internet was saying that pyramid charts are not really good for reading and making comparisons because brain cannot divide things and subtract things. So I went for this other chart, which is even more hard to read, but so but it makes sense. So anyway, so the idea was that I wanted to say which parties are contributing positively or negatively to the how world should be with a balanced gender distribution in the Bundestag. So everything that is above 50% is positive contribution to the gender to diversity, and everything that is on the below the 50% is a negative contribution. And as you can see, the right-wing party had a very strong contribution in 2020 to not having women in the Bundestag. So yeah, I have to update this for this election. They were elections, and apparently I heard it's all good this year. For slope here, I didn't know what a slope chart was before, so I did my Dota chart, and then after I posted it and I saw on Twitter what other people posted, and I saw, oh, that's a slope chart. So yeah, so live and learn. A slope chart is something that you have some some intervals, and then you have the line, like you can see the slope, and it's not just how many games of Dota did you win and how many games of Dota did you play. Yes, I played a lot of games in that period. Okay, distributions. Okay, so here, so some of the distributions charts that I did that I'm not going to go into too much detail. So we had the statistics topic, and for statistics, I found the Goodreads data set. It's on GitHub, somebody posted it, and I took all the books that had statistics in the title, and I did the word graph of word count of the authors, where I had the color for the rating and I think, and the size of the name of the person for how many books they wrote. And then For this one, for another distribution, I use data from Havoscope. Havoscope is a really interesting website which has a lot of data on things that you do not want to know that that data exists for. So in this one is the price of exotic animals that are for sale. And it's a very sad data set because you're thinking, why would anybody want to buy bear paws and all sorts of things? So, and I decided to, because it was a distribution, and I decided to plot the price by weight, and then I ended up having to go on Wikipedia and get the weight of all the animals so that to put them together. And for the physical topic, I found a paper. I was really curious, do we shrink, and how much do we shrink when we grow old? You know, we are all getting old and we're sitting in the chair, the whole COVID now. So I found a paper from a research institute that they did a study, and apparently if you don't do sports after you turn 40, you start shrinking more. And this is worse for women, so do sports, especially if you're over 40. So yeah, so this is a dot plot, by the way, dot chart. And for the abstract topic, how I got to the idea, it was Saturday in bed, and I just was checking the news, and I was seeing the COVID vaccination, and it was April, and the internet was still talking about data in text. So there was this text with like, and this state had this number, and this state had this number, and I was like, how do people compare this text, these numbers, right? So I looked on Observable, and then I found this chart, and I took it as an inspiration, and then I basically create a piano vaccination by state in Germany chart. It was actually not really complicated. So from that one on the left to do that, so you see the states that had more vaccination in April, they're ordered by the number of vaccination, and the same the color. And I added the 25th% and the 50%. We were really, back then, it was April. Everybody wanted to get vaccinated. Okay, so on the next Sunday, I decided to go I wanted to do this kind of circular chart, so this radial chart. And so I live close to a baby club. Baby clubs are these places where people who cannot take care of the babies can anonymously abandon them without getting a record and whatnot. And I was curious, I was always curious, so how many people do that, right? And this data, again, is not really available into this nice data set that you can just download. So I ended up reading all these articles to get like how many for each state, the news in every location and whatnot. And then eventually I built up the data set myself. It's not very accurate, of course, because not all of the data is made public. And also this chart is not really like a good chart in a sense, because here I have the number of baby clappers, the blue, dark blue, and then the rest of the parts are the number of babies. So I kind of combine things, but I really wanted to do this chart. So, okay. And with that note, I also found out that abortion is still illegal practically in Germany, technically. So you can get around doing it, but officially it's illegal. So for the strips, we're still at the distribution. So this is, I don't remember exactly how I thought about getting this data, but this is data from Apple Mobility. You can just access it. And every line here is it was similar with Alexandra's chart, every line here. So this is a bar chart, but everything is really compressed because the lines are very thin. And every line is a day. And here you can see that you can spot the carnival in Rio where people were moving quite a lot. And then this is here where it's darker. And the lighter the colors, it's less movement in the city, lockdowns and whatnot. And the darker the colors, it's more moving. And you could already see that back then Tel Aviv was getting a lot of vaccinations and compared to other places where everybody was locked down. Okay, so for relationships here, I had like some good experiences and some bad experiences. I found data. So two charts are with data from this colors data set with all the JavaScript charts, and you get like who did the chart and what colors they use and the author and how many charts they did. And in the first one, I wanted to see if there's a relationship between people having a lot of experience in charting and using less colors or more colors. So this is like the number of charts a person has done in time and the number of colors they've been using. I don't know. Yeah, maybe. So the very experienced tend to use less. And this one here, I think this one was my most hated graph that I've done in the data visualization. It was a relationship graph, which was supposed to be the relationships between all the colors that were used between that, but it was way too much data for like in-browser JavaScript, and it was like slow to render and everything, and it didn't turn out nice. So it was really unrewarding. And at some point I had to say like, no, this is the end of the day. I have to stop with this. So this is how it turned out. And here, well, pizza. You have to decide if you like this kind of chart or not. But apparently the question was, this was a data set on a survey from UK. And I decided to add the legend, and this was a lot of work because otherwise it would have been easy. It was somebody else's chart, right? From JavaScript, from D3 on observable. So for space, that was the topic one day. So I found out that there's so my boyfriend said that the distance between the moon and Earth changes in time. And I was like, really? I didn't know. So I decided that this must be available somewhere that we can see it in the data. So I found out there was a Python library called Skyfield, and you can get data from NASA about all the distances. But I didn't have all these years to see the other trend. But in the end, I decided to just plot 3 years and see, like, in 3 years, taking them in 1980, 2000, and 2020, if the distance, how it varies. And then this chart came out, and I was like, wow, this is amazing. I really didn't, I had no expectations from this because I don't actually know astronomy. So I was very well impressed. It looks nice. And yeah, and I like the colors too. So for trees, I also, with the chart challenge, at some point I was also going for, like, I want to experiment with many charts types to kind of try different charts. So I wanted at some point to do an arc chart. So I did this one, but then arc charts are not good for a lot of data. This data was from Tidy Tuesday. And then I kind of ended up going for the 90th percentile. So these are the entities that are doing the most deforestation. So you see Europe is there over the years, and I took 3 years, and then the idea was to see, like, which countries, who's doing it. That's that. Pop culture, this is the same chart like the pizza one, but now it's got ABBA songs. The sentiment in the ABBA songs was the topic, was pop culture. A little bit about how this escalated on a Sunday. I also decided to implement my own sentiment analysis endpoint. I didn't manage to deploy it because Hugging Face and TensorFlow, they tend to be quite large, and on like 500 megabits of Heroku memory didn't work out, but I have it locally, even though I didn't really have that industrial amount of songs, so I could have done it without implementing an API for it, but yeah, anyways. But you could see, so the songs go in the year order. So it starts in 72 and ends up in 81 when ABBA was kind of dissolving. And if you want to see it, you can see that, like, the left side, when they are coming towards the end, the songs tend to be negative sentiment. So we could analyze this on other bands to see if they're going to break up or not. Okay, so time series. 6 days of time series, and here the trick for me was, like, we all know time series are like lines or bar charts, right? And then that can get a little bit boring. So how can I get, like, a little more creative with the time series charts? So yeah, so here the plastic, so EU data, Eurostat, you have a lot of data set, the same like with our world in data. So here every post-it is a decade, and in every little post-it is a year. And the bigger post-it is the total amount of plastic produced by us. So you see, we started in the 50s, very small, but it escalates, right? This one here, the same with this is 6,000 years of distance from sun to Earth. Also from the Skyfield, from the NASA data set. And well, the distance changes, but this is, of course, in a lot of millions of kilometers, 100 million kilometers. And here is the gender employment gap. The idea was to do the downward trend. So I found out indeed in Europe, the gender employment gap goes down. So this was data again from Eurostat. There are some countries where politics is not going so well, where the gender gap actually increases, less women work than they used to. And for global change, I found this sea level data set, and I also combined it. No, here I didn't combine, I made another variation where I combined it with the temperature, but here, so the sea level increase. And the trick here was that I didn't understand really what's 1 millimeter sea level. So I decided that I wanted to calculate it, you know, for the graph to put things in perspective. And then it turned out that it's a nightmare to calculate how much is 1 millimeter of sea level. I had to read a lot of papers so to get to the point that it's 361.8 gigatons of iceberg melting, or 6 million Empire State Buildings. So it's bad when 1 millimeter of sea level rises. Okay, so for animation, this is, I had to do it really quickly because I only realized once I was doing the wrong chart, like really late in the day, that animation was the topic of the day and not the next day. So here I found another package in Python. It's called Astral, and you can get the sunrise and the dawn and everything for any place in the world for any day. So this one was a day in April, and you see when the sun rises, when it moves, and then I made it as an animation that I really needed to do something quickly, and it was quite tricky to do animations because I didn't know how to do animations at all. And I couldn't go past doing more than one little box of animation. So that was cut. I was like, but yeah, so animation is not like a big deal afterwards. It turns out that all you have to do is use the time, the clock of the time. Yeah. So, and then you do stuff that changes by time, and then Bob's your uncle, theoretically, but yeah. I use the same library to kind of go on, and for the monochrome topic, and this is the change. So this is 1 year in Hamburg of sunset, sunrise, and so daylight stuff. So the same like it was in the animation, but no, this is on over a whole year. And here it turned out, again, I'm a space noob, and it turned out that everybody, so not everybody, but some people were like, see, and now you can see that Hamburg is not a symmetrical city. It's not in, you know, Greenwich. That's why the year is not aligned to 1st of January. And that's, so if you didn't know. So yeah, so what was really interesting when sometimes you have no expectations and you do the data visualization, and then you get to learn something about physics, astronomy, yeah. And to come to the last topic, uncertainties, and I think this was like the hardest topic because I think we tend not to really do it from what I understand in data visualization and also in data science. If you start adding uncertainty information to a chart, it becomes difficult to read by people who are not experienced reading graphs, and then everybody doesn't do it. And also with the 30-day chart challenge, the people who were running the challenge, they ended up after the first day of uncertainty, like publishing, like, by the way, here are some tutorials about how to deal with uncertainty. I think a lot of people like didn't really get it right the first time. So yeah, so I was like, okay, I ended up doing, yeah, so confidence intervals and all sorts of things, because my first day of uncertainty was also like, yeah, the data is uncertain. So, but it wasn't really a good uncertainty chart. And for the future of uncertainty, no, this was a topic in the uncertainty. I finally did the slope chart that I was supposed to do a lot earlier. So I was like, yay. And for this data, for the world population aging, I ended up reading a whole, like skimming through a whole UN book. I think it was like a report, but the reports have 150 pages, and the data wasn't in a table. The data was in text, it was in graphs that weren't labeled with like exact numbers. I had to use a ruler to kind of get like, where is this number here on my laptop to kind of get, yeah, so what's the value at 2010? It was really like, yeah, I was like, why don't they publish the data? So like properly, but they didn't. But yeah, so that was fun. So apparently, and the uncertainty here, because I ran a little like spreadsheet prediction. Older population is expected to surpass younger one by 2047. So make more children if you want. And deviations, I wanted to do also a W.E.B. Du Bois challenge chart. So I took colonization data, and here this chart is, again, don't think that I like jump started my JavaScript to this level. It was somebody else already did it, and then I changed it a bit and I adapted it to my needs and with my data. But yeah, so basically these are all the countries that did colonialization and what was the median, the average number of years they did, and then the deviations. So yeah, and oh yeah, and the color is showing the median violence during those colonialization years. So you see the dark, we don't have on the 6th scale, but 5. So Portugal and Netherlands were quite violent when they left or during. So yeah, and for the final one, I didn't know what to do for 3D. So I basically collected my data on how frustrated I've been on the 30-day charge challenge. And I did this 3D chart and trying to see whether I've been more frustrated on specific days or on specific topics. So this is also not a good chart to have in like industry, but for this topic, it was funny. So yeah, that was that. So what happened? I think my data visualization got a little bit better. At least I now have titles and like what Alexandra said, like the font. And I was like, you know, like it's a website now and it looks like nice on its own and I don't need to copy stuff anymore. But also this whole journey has exposed me to like a wonderful community of data visualization, like on Twitter, and people also commenting also on Observable. People like gave me tips and pull requests on some of my notebooks to improve this and that. I was also then a featured creator on Observable, and I was invited to become an ambassador. And then I also started my 30-week chart challenge, which I only did 2 weeks out of 30, and it's already like long ago that I started it. It takes a lot of time to do a visualization. And yeah, and you can see the challenge here on this link, and I can recommend you this book. I used it during it had just arrived before I started the challenge, but then I kind of used it as a dictionary for data visualization for me. So I need to do this, and it was really handy. And the Better Data Visualization by Jonathan Schwabish. And otherwise, also Race After Technology is a book that I'm currently reading, and I recommend that you read for doing better tech, for helping people. Okay, thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Teresa. And again, thank you so much, Alexandra, for both of your presentations. We do have a couple of minutes for questions and answers. So this is a call to our attendees in the chat or using the Q&A to sort of like, post questions that you would like our presenters to address. I will start with one which I'm curious. I think both of you briefly touched on, but maybe to look at them again, sort of like in comparison, I would be interested. What was your main motivation to expose yourself to this challenge? Because as I suppose if you said, like, it is intense, it can be frustrating at times. What was your main motivation? And let me start in reverse order. Teresa, what was your main motivation to participate?
I really like data visualization, but I just never took the time, the grinding time, basically. It is, I mean, you cannot become better at it until you spend time doing it. And I thought this is like a short-term challenge. It's not like something, okay, I will take the next year. But the main motivation, the main reason was like, for me this year was because in in February, I participated at I attended the Outlier conference, which was a conference with data visualization. I was like, oh my God, this is so amazing. Why can't I do such nice data visualization? Where do you start and everything? And I was like, okay, this is a good place to start. Because with the 30-day charge challenge now, there were also people that did hand drawings and they were really good, or Lego or whatever. So it's not that you need to use JavaScript at the same time, right? You can go make your own data, right? Yeah.
Great. Alexandra, how was it for you?
So I think for me, it was kind of the opportunity to finally kind of be able to take part in quite a short-term project and be like, okay, I'm going to work on this data visualization and I'm going to do it, and then it's going to be done. I'm going to put it online. So it was really nice, because when kind of with the research that I'm doing, I mean, there's a bit these projects that are really long, and for me to say, okay, now I have to write the manuscript, it takes quite a while. So for me to have kind of these projects where I see that it's over, it's very rewarding. And yeah, it was also just a way to connect with other people and also kind of start a new hobby. And so for sure. And also that it's also a skill that I can apply to the work that I do, that is more with the data that I collect, that I work with. So it's always something that I like spending time on. So yeah.
Fantastic, thank you. Luke asked a question. He refers to Teresa's experience with sort of like negative comments. Did both of you also experience sort of like positive comments or sort of like positive reactions from the community that you would like to sort of like highlight, that maybe motivated you or sort of like helped you advance? I jump back to Alexandra. Sorry, Alexandra.
Okay.
Let's go with you first, and then we hear Teresa's.
Yeah, I guess because before that, I would never really post work that I would do. So this would just be something that I would keep to myself and like, oh, okay, I'm just gonna take this step and just share it. And yeah, always seeing other people like it or retweet it was very rewarding. And then yeah, see some people that are really good at it, like Cédric Scherer or Georgios or Dominic, who also organized this event, were like complimenting it. Yeah, felt really good to say, oh yeah, I'm doing something. And yeah, it was kind of motivating to keep working on it as well. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Great. Teresa, how about yourself?
Yeah, likewise. I think they organize it also as a platform. For the way they organize it with Twitter posting was meant to kind of reward people for like sharing, you know. And also at the end, I think some people like published some blogs about some visualizations that they really liked, even though they were not theirs. So they also participated. And I think my ABBA visualization was mentioned in one of them, which was like really cool. So but yeah, so I think definitely the negative one was just the politics, right? But I heard that right wing is really strong on social media, so apparently, yeah. But after that, I didn't have any more negative and only positive, yeah.
Okay, good to hear. Richard asks the question for 30-day chart challenge 2022. First question is, are you both back on board? And second question, what would you do sort of like differently, and what would you do the same? Let's start back with Teresa.
Yeah, I'm actually considering there's a 30-day map challenge starting now in November. And thinking about it. Maybe I think, so for me, I would want to try not to do all the days, but it's kind of, it really triggers my gamification stuff that is ingrained. And it's really hard not to do all the days. It feels like, oh my God, I'm missing out on a topic and whatnot. That's, but yeah, I think I will do the next year one. Mm-hmm. And maybe for the map, just some days.
Got it. Alexandra?
Oh yeah, I think definitely. And I think what I will try to do differently is to reuse some data sets, so try to maybe in advance select some data sets, and these are data sets that I know that can reuse, that are quite versatile, that I can reuse in other ways. I think this would save me some time in order to then be able to actually do all the days. So that's kind of like, that would be my goal, to really do more of the days. Yeah, because. So yeah, and also experiment more, and for sure. So I think I stayed a bit too much on the safe side, I felt like, so a bit more, yeah, experiment more for sure, yeah.
All right, great. Well, we are at time. Yeah, what remains for me to do is again, thank you both for sharing your experiences. Also, thank you for participating in the 30-day chart challenge to begin with, because I think, yeah, producing work, reflecting upon work, exchanging with other people upon work is tremendously helpful, both to you, but also to the wider community who sort of like follows along and sees what people come up with. So I think, yeah, both the organization and the people who participate in these challenges like help basically to community advance and sort of like nurture this conversation. I also want to thank all the attendees who joined in. I see an incredible amount of clapping emojis. So apparently your presentations have definitely struck a nerve, were very instructive and insightful. So thank you all for that. Next, what we're going to do is in November, on the 30th of November, we're going to have our next meetup, which is with Pablo Robles from Bloomberg. And he will talk about mapping the story. So let's assume it's about narrative visualizations, especially with a focus on sort of like cartographic visualization. So join us for that on November 30th. And then we will skip December. As we know, everybody is quite busy in December, and it's oftentimes a short month for many due to festive season. So we will be back after that in January 2022, on January 27th, where we have the team from the Loud Numbers podcast, which is a data sonification podcast. So join in if you're interested in data sonification as a field or in the work that Loud Numbers have been doing specifically. As always, if you have questions, comments, recommendations, suggestions, please either reach out on meetup.com or just write us an email. We're always happy to listen and give answers to questions that might be out there. Teresa, Alexandra, thank you again. And everybody in the chat, have a great rest of your day and see you next time. Bye.